Topher, thanks so much for joining me today to have an open and honest conversation about the George Floyd situation. I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts, a lot of perspectives, and paying attention to what you do on social media. I think you probably have collected your thoughts incredibly well, and you're well spoken in terms of being able to put this entire thing into a perspective that is your own and that's unique. So I want to welcome you first. And just before we get started, why don't you just say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Topher, better known as Tophertown Music on TikTok. I'm one of the biggest faces when it comes to the conservative movement over there. I'm a member of the Conservative Hype House, which has over 700,000 followers and growing daily. But I'm originally from Mississippi, and I live in Mississippi currently. Did 6 years active duty Air Force, and from there I went to doing digital marketing. And for the most part, I've been involved in and out of politics for the last 5 years. And I got really heavy involved back in November last year, and I have not slowed down because it's gotten to the point now that I feel like it's even more important to have what I have to say and my voice out there than ever. So,
what was it in November of last year that made you? It was the impetus to kind of get you back involved and more vocal and outspoken.
So it's election cycle, of course. You had the whole impeachment trial going on, and you had a lot of the executive orders and policies, like people getting kicked off of food stamps and stuff like that.
Yep.
I actually started TikTok just as a fun thing. I had no intentions of actually getting into politics because of the backlash I received for my point of view from my fellow from my Black community. So I've kind of just avoided a lot of stuff, and I saw this guy post something that was just completely false without context, and I just had to say something. Just how you have that moment where you just have to speak up. It's like, man, this is bad news.
Yeah.
And I spoke up, and the reception I got was amazing. It was very welcoming, it was warming, and people was like, wow, man, I never thought about it that way, or thank you for speaking out. And so I did one more video that was pertaining to something else. I forgot what it was, and I got another warm reception. So then I was like, okay, people are looking for this information, and they're not just looking for information from I guess a normal person. They're looking from somebody that looks like, to me, I wear a hoodie all the time and a beanie because I don't want people to associate conservatives with just straight up white dudes that wear suits all the time.
Like me.
You're good. But just like, I want them to know that it's an everyday citizen, man. I'm just a regular cat.
Yeah.
I actually do hip hop music, which is not the normal genre. And it's just one of those things where I'm just like, look, my views are my views because I was raised, a lot of Black people are raised socially conservative. We just forget that for some reason. But and I started changing like I said, a lot of my shift started happening when I joined the military, and I got out of the groupthink mentality, and I got separated from my family and friends, and that it allowed me to think, right? So a lot of times when you think and you try to have that freedom of thought and expression, you get a lot of ridicule that comes with it. But when you're taken away from that environment and you're given that freedom to, just freely think and just kind of ponder on those type of things, and I had that ability, and man, it has been such a blessing to me.
So would you say that people like Kanye West and Candace Owens and people such as that have been part of this, I guess what do they call it, Blexit? I mean, that there's this sort of liberation movement of thinking for yourselves and not thinking the way one party has designed you to think?
Yes, I believe Blexit is awesome. I love B. Tatum and Candace Owens. I watch them all the time. And Candace I've watched her for the last year, and what she was in 2017 when she was having conversations with people versus the conversation she's having today is just phenomenal. Like her just her knowledge has grown exponentially, and everything they're doing. And some of my favorite people is King Face and Larry Elder. I'm reading a book from Thomas Sowell right now. It's called Black Redneck and the White Liberal. So it's a lot of stuff I'm just educating myself on that, it's good to see other conservatives out there. And I think that's the most important thing, is being visually available, or just visually out there so people can see you.
Well, I remember back when Kanye was going through this whole revolution of the mind, if you want to call it that. I remember how many people were, the names they were calling him and how they thought he'd gone crazy. I mean, they respected his art. They thought they're like, he's a great musician, but he needs to shut up. He's lost his mind. I'm thinking, how can you say that? Now, it's true that a lot of artists like ourselves are people that sometimes, like Beethoven, people like that who kind of went a little bit loony, you know, towards the end. But I never saw what he was saying was loony at all. I thought what he was saying was a very, very deep level of introspection that no one wanted to attest to and didn't want to give credence to because of what he was saying.
Yeah. And I think that happens because people don't expect artists to grow, right?
Yeah.
So they expect artists to stay in that same mindset. So when he first started off, of course, he was like, you know, he really didn't like cops. He's from Chicago, you know, he's from Chicago.
Yeah.
So the situation there is probably not the greatest, obviously. So he did have a different perspective. But as you grow, as you become a business owner, now he's the first or the richest billionaire when it comes to hip hop artists, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
But when you grow and develop, you change, and those priorities that you thought, to me, when you get to that level, how can someone tell you that you're oppressed? You know, at some point you gotta be like, man, am I really oppressed? I feel pretty well. You know, I'm a
Right.
billionaire. You know, all these things,
Right.
and then when that happens, you start questioning everything else. But I think what happens is, for me at least, I was always a why guy. Like I was the kid that you got tired of talking to. It's like,
Yeah.
why? And my mom used to tell me to shut up and just go sit down, which I encourage parents not to do. Just try to do your best to answer the questions. And if you don't
Right.
know the answer, just tell them you don't know and you'll get back to them.
And Topher,
Um,
the why is so important. It's so important in everything. It's important in what we're about to talk about too. As we dive right into the George Floyd situation,
mm,
you know, you have to ask why. I'm always, you know, I think it was Thomas Jefferson that actually said something to the effect of question with boldness, even the existence of God, for he would much better, he would basically prefer well-rationed logic than blind fear. And I think that applies right now because we have to see everything from all sides. And people use confirmation bias to confirm their own bias about what they think they're seeing. So as we look at George Floyd, just based on what you've seen thus far, and we haven't seen every angle. We haven't seen we don't have the eyewitness accounts of everybody. I wasn't there. I don't think you were there either. Based on what you see, what is your assessment of what happened there?
Washington Post actually released a great, well put together video this morning. I got to see that's kind of like a shows the series of events and how they got to that part, and
Yeah.
it's really well. I encourage you to check it out. But based on the video, and based on first of all, based on just the 10-minute video we saw of the personal video on camera, to me, you just think like they showed up and threw him on the ground and put his knee on his neck and he just sat there. But they tried to arrest him multiple times, or at least get him in the car multiple times, and he resisted for a while before we even got to that point.
Okay.
And matter of fact, Chauvin wasn't even one of the first officers to show up on the scene. He was actually one of the last. But that does not excuse what happened to him, of course, is what I'm getting to.
Correct.
But it's just more breadth to the situation. And I'm one of those people I want to make sure that we get it right, because if we don't understand where we went wrong, then it can happen again. And it doesn't hurt the system, it hurts us. So that's why I'm big on like let's look at the facts. Let's wait for everything to come out. I understand you angry. I understand that that you have a right to be hurt. You know, you have the right to be angry, but let's try to be objective and rational if we truly want to seek a solution. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm at with the whole thing, and I'm glad they finally charged him. And once again, we got to understand like why it takes a while to have someone charged. Like you just can't grab somebody first day, we're going to charge you with this, because if you charge wrong, overcharge, or do something, they're going to get off, right? So they got to take their time, actually look at the autopsy, which came out. A lot of times they wait on that, right, to see. So autopsy came out and showed what went down and everything else. So then they can come with the charges. Okay, this is what happened. That's why they came with murder in the third degree and manslaughter, which I think are appropriate charges. I think those are going to stick, and they're easier to prove.
So sometimes, Topher, what I do is when I look at a situation like this, I will try to be color blind to it, meaning I'll try to take the color and racial element out of it. Now that's me, okay? So when I do that, I'm looking at a man on the ground that has clearly been detained. He doesn't seem like he's posing any threat. And I see an officer basically got his knee all over him for essentially no reason, why 3 other cops stand by and seem to have no problem with this. Now, what people would probably tell me is say, Bo, you can't take color out of it. You can't take the racial aspect out of it because you have a Caucasian officer on top of an African-American male. This has happened how many times before? We've seen people arrested for being black. We've seen people beaten up for being black. In some cases, people being arrested who had a legitimate charge. In other words, they had committed a crime, but still got unfairly treated. So do you look at this? What's the racial component that you see and how you assess this particular situation?
I don't think there's. I'm one of those people too. It's hard to prove anyone's intent. Like it's gonna be hard to improve in murder, period. Let alone to prove that this was racially and inclined.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I don't think it was. I just think it just to me, honestly, the only difference that would have made between him and anybody else is if it would have been a woman, if it would have been a kid, and if it would have been a person that's super rich. We probably would be reading a different headline. But if it would have been a white guy, I completely believe it would have been the same situation if he would have behaved in the same manner. Reason being is because a lot of people forgot about Tony Temple. You ever heard of Tony Temple?
Yep, sure
A
have.
lot of people forgot about him, and he was pretty much in a similar situation. And because of that, no one talks about it because it was white on white.
Right.
That didn't get the same hype. That no one went out and protested or rioted or burned down anything. And crazy thing about it was this happened back in 2016, and they didn't go to grand jury to what 2019, something like that. And then even then, the 3 officers got off. They didn't even get charged. They got off the charges. So it's like, so where's the white privilege in that? So it's one of those things where we need to stop looking at something is because I'm black, because we can look at the statistics, FBI statistics, DOJ statistics, everything's greater when it comes to the murders and unarmed killings by cops. White people rule the category. I think it's just that people think it's happening at a higher rate because we're a lesser population. That's all. So, like, for instance, if I'm walking down the street and indiscriminately killing people, and there's black people on one side, white people on the other side, I don't know the population, the maximum amount of people that's, in the United States. I just know these are the people currently right here. And if one dies and over here and one dies over there, statistics are going to say I have a higher chance of dying simply because it's less of me when you take that one person out of the pie, if that makes sense. So I think we just need to pull it back. And what that does is it doesn't really get to the issue at hand. If we make laws or we try to make a system seem that it's racially motivated and it's not, then we're never going to get to the core issues. But if we show that the system is just flawed inherently, then we really can get some things done.
So Topher, how do we know that? I mean, this is where if you don't have police policing the police, how do we know what kind of oversight there really is? Because if this was a bad cop, I've read that he and his partner had about 12, 13 complaints against him. So from a community perspective, you may say, this has happened 12 or 13 times. There was no disciplinary action. Nothing happened. And we see this in a number of police departments. And I'm a guy who always has tried to support the police because I think they have very tough jobs. You don't know if you're going to come home to your wife and kids every night. You just don't know that. Or your husband and kids, if you're a female police officer. So how do we trust? How does a community, or even as Americans, how do we trust a system that seems even optically like what the situation is with George Floyd, that it's imbalanced?
I'm a big military guy, so we don't have to completely trust it. We can trust but verify. So let's verify that it's working. Obviously, we can trust that the police are going to do their due diligence and bring charges and still slap them with the same level of laws that would do ordinary citizens. But we have to verify that. And once we verify they're not doing the same thing, then we need to go in and tell them it's not working. And that needs to start with our local leaders and government and officials. We need to go there and be like, hey guys, over here in this community, we've been seeing a lot of people get off that, typically shouldn't have gotten off, or we're seeing longer sentences for this certain amount of demographic versus this demographic. And we need to address that. We need to understand why. Transparency is one of those things we need to get to. I mean, increase the transparency and rulings and a lot of stuff we need to, it's so many elements to just the process in general that it's hard to just really, I guess, narrow down what we need to fix. And that's why I'm one of those people I believe in. I don't care who you are. We need to make the law indiscriminatory. Like if you're a female, male, whatever you are, and you murder someone, everyone gets the same sentence. So whatever that is, and we don't see that. See, we always talk about the black versus white, but we don't talk about the male versus female.
Right.
When it comes to just when it comes to sentencing and everything else. But we need to talk about these things because if we want true equality, we want everyone to be to feel safe and supported by the system, then we have to get to that point.
Do you think that Blacks who have been convicted of violent crimes get tougher sentences or a worse plight than white violent criminals?
Yes, but I don't think it's simply because of their race. I think there was a study done in Louisiana, and they was talking about that, trying to come up with, well, why is the system so biased against, blacks versus whites?
Yeah.
And I think they said even that racial bias accounts for maybe 9% of the reason why the sentencing is longer. Because actually, the study showed that if you're a black judge, you're more likely to give a longer sentence to someone of color because you feel like you feel like they're painting you in a bad picture. So I'm gonna be harsh on you because you're family, you look like me, and you're making me look bad because you look like me. And then the same study came out with, when it comes to officers shooting people, you're more likely to be shot by I'm more likely to be shot by a black cop than a white cop.
Interesting.
So all these studies are coming out, disproving the narrative that there's just a witch hunt, between white cops and black people in America.
So let's talk about why that is then. Let's get to again, like you said, you asked why as a kid. What's the why? Is this a media narrative that has exploited racial division within our country without a lot of evidence, that's designed to create race wars, class wars, things of that sort? Because if the evidence is not backing this up, then something is amiss. And if no one's asking why, like we are right now, you just get the flames get fanned, which is why we're seeing things burning down in Minneapolis and Chicago, in DC. So why is that?
I'm gonna be straight honest with you, man. I just think the media is in it for the money, for the rating and views. I mean, money rules everything, right? So we can look at it like when it's peaceful, no one's watching news, no one's looking for the next thing. People really only turn on the news when something tragic is happening, like what's going on. Like it's just like we need to know what's going on so we can, look out for ourselves and prepare. And I think we just been caught in that cycle so long. And what I love about this encounter, this what we have with technology in a way that news is becoming more independent, is that we can almost break away from that cycle and get away from the loaded language and the media bias and actually get to some real truth, get to some real engaging conversations that's going to move the conversation forward. And
what I'm trying to do with you. And I hope we have more of these.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, man, my why is just money, and to me, it's in spirit and money. Same thing we have when we talk about exploiting music or anything else. It's all about the money at the end of the day. And if we can get away from that and just understand that we actually control the narrative. I mean, think about it. If we just take control and put it out there and stop listening to crazy people. I mean, because we have some reliable sources out there, man, and just listen to the reliable sources. And I think we need more leadership. We need more people attacking the media when they put out false stuff. I think someone was attacking CNN. I forgot who it was. But they was condemning CNN for putting out an article or just causing a stir. I think it was Killer Mike, if I'm not mistaken. Recently, last night, he was talking about that. And he was just, pretty much telling CNN, please stop encouraging people for, rioting and tearing down stuff, because that's getting besides the point. Like that's covering up or messing up the entire message we're trying to do here. We're trying to protest. We're trying to highlight police brutality. And one of my things with that whole movement is, because that says the Black Lives Matter movement. Is I hate exclusionary language or exclusionary movements. And of course they say it's inclusionary because we've been excluded, so that's why Black Lives Matter too.
Right.
But still, you can say we haven't been excluded, not to the point what they're saying, because once again, based on the data and the stats and everything we've seen, it just doesn't add up, And we got to try to be as empirical as possible when it comes to these things, because if we start taking anecdotal evidence in, then that's going to destroy any leftist narrative of anything, right? So we have to look for that objective data.
So do you think the Black Lives Matter movement, by its very title, or is exclusionary, that it says only our? See, I've always heard it as no, but it's not Black Lives Matter. It means Black Lives Matter just like everybody else's lives matter. But when there becomes an exclusionist part of it, it's like it makes it seem like it's only our lives that matter. And that's why when you get this debate again, no, it's all lives matter. It's Black Lives Matter. It's this. And it's like, which one are you supposed to pick? I mean, they have literally divided us based on
Yeah.
what lives matter the most, which is an insane proposition.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is you damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? I say to that is let's just get only reason why we're saying all lives matter is because of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And I've been against that movement since its very foundation, because if we were really about Black Lives Matter, why are we not out protesting Planned Parenthood and closing down abortion clinics that are disproportionately, I mean, at this point in New York, there are more babies being aborted than born. You know, that's the definition of genocide almost.
Yeah.
So my thing is, so why aren't you there? You know what I'm saying? Black Lives Matter. So if it's just Black Lives Matter too, why aren't you out protesting when people like Tony Temple or Daniel Shaver? Why aren't you out there protesting when people like that are killed? You know what I'm saying? Because you're not protesting for both. It's like, so
Right.
it doesn't support your narrative that is Black Lives Matter too, and we're being inclusive. So that's why I don't believe it's
Okay.
about.
And I would contend that that this whole movement, I mean, it's designed by its very purpose to divide. And I don't think it should be a whose lives matter more. And I think by its very title that it could be giving that impression, even if it's not. And then I look at a guy like Colin Kaepernick, and I'm sure you've seen the memes. He's on a knee, then you got Chauvin on top of Floyd with the knee. Which knee offends you more? And I think that's a false comparison. I don't like seeing that because, I'm not saying what Colin's doing is not just, or there aren't pure motives to what he's doing, but also he's been paid handsomely for it too. So is Colin Kaepernick the leader? Is he supposed to be the MLK of this movement? I mean, who is it? Do we have a leader in this community? And if it's not Colin, who is it?
Yeah. I hope it's not Colin, because if it's Colin, then yes, it's definitely not going to get where we need it to be. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the back like who the leader is. I think we pick and choose people. We can anybody that's getting national attention, all of a sudden they're the face, right? So
Yeah.
they're using Colin because he's got all the national attention. He has the connections. He has the money. So he has the resources. So I think that's why a lot of people like to compare that. But yeah, that photo is just a prime example of false equivalency.
Yep.
And I hate it because it takes all context out of it just takes everything out of context.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm a person that likes to I'm a pragmatic person, very logical, straightforward.
Yeah.
Context, I need context. I don't care what you come to me with, until I can understand the whole picture, then I can listen to what you're saying, but until for me to give a rational decision and back to whatever, I have to see the whole picture. And it just
And
doesn't make
context
sense.
is so key, Topher, because as we dive into some of the Trump tweets over the past 48 hours, the word thugs and how people took that to mean it could only refer to Black people. He didn't
Right.
say that, but that's what the message that came from it. Then when the looting begins, the shooting begins. He clarified that, I believe, today or last night, but people took that and ran with it to mean like, oh, so when the looting begins, we're going to shoot you. And again, exclusive to one race. That's how, and again, the media absolutely blew that out of proportion. And celebrities, people like Taylor Swift, for instance, someone I've been very, very critical of. I don't know if you happen to see her tweet, but once again, she's sticking her nose into politics when she, in my opinion, she doesn't know a damn thing about it. And she's using it to stoke hatred. She didn't realize that, and you probably know this, artist to artist here, she was being very, very disingenuous about her record label spat a couple months ago in performing at the American Music Awards. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate. And if she's trying to be a uniter, she's doing the opposite of it. She's the pot calling the kettle black. She's the one that's out there dividing intentionally. So when I see her stoke this flame based on a lack of context, because she didn't want the context. People are reading what they're confirming their own biases, And so I know you've talked a little bit about those tweets. Why don't you dive into those and tell me what your context is on those?
So first of all, when I heard it, I can guarantee you both that probably once a day, there's going to be something going on where Trump says something and people are going off the wall. It never fails.
Yeah.
Someone's like, did you hear what Trump said? I'm like, what did Trump say? And I always have to go back, read it, and then be like, he never said that. He never said lost all. He never said this. He never said any of that. It's just all context added after the fact.
Right.
And they do this because it's easier to support the narrative that they've painted about President Trump, which is that he's a racist, which once again, I don't believe he is, and there's no evidence to prove otherwise. All of everything, for the most part, a lot of it is anecdotal, and yeah, you know how I feel about anecdotal evidence.
Yep.
Now, when we talk about the tweets as far as the thugs, man, so back in 2015, when Obama referred to the people in the Baltimore riots as thugs, no one batted an eye. It was just like, oh, okay, well, Obama said the thugs cool. No one went out and said anything.
Right.
But as soon as President Trump refers to them as thugs, all of a sudden he's specifically meaning black people. I'm like, no, he never mentioned color. He never mentioned color, even when there was protesting in Michigan at the Capitol. He never mentioned color then. He just said very good people. And the reason why he called them very good people is because they actually protested. They didn't burn nothing down. It's like it was nothing violent about what they did. Right. And a thug, to me, by definition, is just a criminal. That's simply put. And then I heard someone else say, why did he call the police officer a thug? Because I feel like murderer has a higher or heavier weight to it than thug. Right. So I think that's why, I mean, now you're just picking fights right now. And then to me, that's senseless. And of course, we're going to see this happen all the time. That's why he did the executive order against Twitter, because and other social media applications because of that. And you know, it's bad, man. And when you do this, we have to waste so much time just spelling rumors and misinformation than actually working towards a goal. And I feel like there's a lot of times that's what I'm doing is actually going back and trying to put out fires that shouldn't be there in the first place.
And what amazes me too, Topher, is you look at the outreach that he's had in the African-American community and bringing the faith leaders and bringing, you know, obviously Kanye and Kim, but, you know, the prison reform, opportunity zones. There are a number of policy actions from this president that are evidence in and of themselves. But right. If you have in your heart such a hatred for the man that you say he has to be racist because I believe that he is, then any action he has after that, following that, will seem as if it's a racist action. In other words, turning the word thug into meaning it can only apply to one race of people. You know, and so this is why, yeah, I know sometimes he says things that it's like he's just like, oh, what did he say now? You know, when the looting begins, the shooting begins. That means he's going to shoot all the black people that are you know, causing violence. You know, it's an absurdist exercise, really. But and I wish sometimes, Topher, that there didn't have to be an interpreter, so to speak, that we would have to go through and do this. That's difficult for us as people to do, and as people who are more conservative-minded to do. We don't want to have to do that every time, or to have Kayleigh McEnany get up there and saying, this is what the president meant. But there's so much hatred for him that is piled on by the media that they're going to take that and run with it and say, look, I mean, you get Don Lemon, you know, you get all these people that just take it and run with it, and then they consider themselves the great virtue signalers, like they've done the world a favor.
Yeah. Speaking of Don Lemon, I was done. Like I was already done with mainstream media and CNN specifically, but when they allowed on Don Lemon's show for them to call the Black Trump supporters that went up to the White House doing the Black History Month event, Uncle Tom's on national TV, which is a racial slur.
Yep.
That to me is, yeah, I'm done. Like obviously I understand the message now. It's very clear to me. Y'all don't care nothing about real news. You're just there to stir up trouble. And like you said, man, as a conservative, I really hate it because it's so much more work we could be doing. I mean, literally, we could be out here teaching people how to arm themselves. We could be like Maj Touré. We could be out here teaching people about the constitutional rights they don't know too much about. We could be out here educating people, you know, helping starting businesses. We could be spending so much more time doing these things, but we have to sit back and go out here and just say, guys, no, stop listening to anyone that has Trump derangement syndrome, which I didn't think was a real thing until until you actually sit back and look. It's like, man, this is bad. Like you guys are really just. It don't matter what this man says, and despite the fact that back in the 90s and 80s, he was with Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition, helping to stir Black businesses onto Wall Street and getting that started. He was there with when he was his first attempt to run was in I forgot what party, Reform Party, or he was gonna run and he wanted Oprah Winfrey as his VP. And the reason he got out of that party was because David Duke joined. So it's like it's so many things that we just overlook, man. And Trump has done so much. I just hate that he gets such a bad rep for it.
Not just that, but Topher, but look at the attention that Trump has gotten for the word thugs or for very fine people on both sides. You remember that from Charlottesville. And then look at Joe Biden. telling someone in an interview, if you don't know the difference between me and Trump, you ain't black. Which I watched Harris Faulkner's commentary on Fox, and I thought it was brilliant the way she talked about it. And she just said, you know, people have told me all my life, if I don't speak a certain way, if I don't act a certain way, then I can't possibly be black. And, you know, as a man who cannot walk a mile in your shoes or anyone from that community, I just have to say that I was almost offended for them because, and the coverage, the coverage it got, which was minimal for the legacy media, which is a very outrageous thing to say and an offensive thing to say. And then you have, but then you got to reach to take Trump's tweets and turn them into something you don't want. And that's where you see the man having to fight media. He's having to fight Hollywood. He's having to fight Taylor Swift, Mark Cuban, people like that who don't see through this. And it's amazing he's able to get done what he's been able to get done. But when you see the policy put in action, the opportunity zones, prison reform, committing sentence of people like Alice Johnson, there's some incredible things being done, but it completely gets overshadowed and overlooked because the people have confirmed their bias that he is inherently racist.
Yeah. And once again, that's by design. They want to make him seem racist. They don't want people to actually see. And I think that's why I have an issue with, I won't say not seeing color or seeing color, period, is because, especially when we was talking about the case earlier with George Floyd, is because as soon as you label something racist, all common sense goes out the window. It turns everybody off. No one wants to hear what's coming out of their mouth. And I feel like that's why they try so hard to make Trump a racist or xenophobe or sexist or anything like that. Because as soon as you call somebody that, you turn off. And you don't want him to act, you don't want to actually hear the things he's doing great for this country and great for the Black community. The people that are actually living in these opportunity zones, and they're praising him for it. The people that have been released from prison, they are praising him for it. The people that, just all these things, like go talk to those people, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to understand the media is purposely, I'm going to be honest with you, bro, they're not going to bring me or Candace Owen onto CNN at any point in time. It'd be like, so what you think about what you think about President Trump? They're not going to do that.
Which is sad because your voice no, wait a minute. This presents a problem. I thought Black Lives mattered. Does that mean yours doesn't? Does that mean Candace's doesn't?
Well, they say to me, what I get a lot of times is we're not Black anyway. Like you said, Biden said it. So we're not Black. So therefore, right. we're not included. My Black card has been revoked. I have been counseled from the barbecues. I did get invited to the golf tournaments though, so I do appreciate that. Right. But I'd rather go to a golf tournament anyway. Because I lived in Augusta, Georgia for a while. Masters is an amazing event.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But it's one of those things where it's funny to me, man. And a lot of people are like, man, racism's still alive and well. I said the reason why I know it is because of people that look like me that treat me the way I've been treated. It's not even the white man or the Hispanic man. It's literally other Black people treating me like I'm less than simply because I refuse to give into this false narrative. I refuse to stay in the herd mentality, and I refuse to be a victim. Like these are the things I refuse. I mean, I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up in poverty. I grew up with domestic violence. I grew up with alcoholism. I grew up with all of that. I was bullied at home when I was in school, and that's why I ended up getting big and handle weights. But I would never say I can't do something because of those things. The fact that I overcame those situations is why I know I can overcome anything. And for you to question my intelligence because I just choose a different path is very discrediting, is very disheartening. And to me, it shows your true colors. Because obviously you're not for Black people if you ain't for all Black people.
Period. See, to me, Topher, that's dehumanizing. If someone is looking at you based on the color of your skin and thinking you were less than something, isn't that the textbook definition of racism?
Textbook. And besides the fact that, we can go down Biden history, look at the crime bill, look at the segregation and all that, and actually see policies that you could say, okay, this was racist, or things he's actually said, we say poor kids are just as bright and smart and talented as white kids. Yeah. Imagine if Trump would have said anything like that.
Remotely, yeah.
He would be counseled completely. But he hasn't. He has not said anything like that. Even when he was talking to Black people back in 2015 to get elected, the Black voters, he was saying stuff like, dude, the Democrats have been, treating you guys wrong for so many years. why don't you just come over to the Republican Party?
What do you
That's
got to
what
lose?
he's saying.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm at least say, hey, man, you might want to at least give me a try. But when someone questions your whole entire race, I think I've got this quote. I've got who it was from, but I was talking to King Face one time, and he was talking about this guy who told him, he said, man, if white privilege is a thing, then the only time I can see it being real is the fact that I can think differently from my fellow white man or person and not be considered a traitor to my race. Because
Yeah.
people like me are considered traitors to our race
Right.
simply because we don't think the same. That's crazy.
Well, I think I've been deemed a traitor to my profession in terms of entertainment. I mean, think about this. We're two artists speaking to one another, but my outspoken conservative beliefs and where I've stood on things, whether it's supporting the president or more conservative policies or traditional values, tough border security, I'm on the fringe, of what entertainment and artists think. Taylor Swift being a prime example. And I firmly believe that I have lost roles and opportunities because of my beliefs. And I thought that liberalism was supposed to bring the very word, a liberal attitude towards things, which is hearing all views, all viewpoints, it's being diverse. And I'm finding out that it's not diverse at all, that the level of speech that you have is not permitted unless it goes along that line.
Yeah, there's a
And
very thin line you have to toe.
and that's the shame about it, is it's like, I watch Hollywood award shows and it's the same broken record over again. Orange man bad, we're going to vote you out. And the virtue signaling that goes on there is just insane. I was very disappointed in what Brad Pitt had to say when he won his Oscar. I thought he really should have just kept it right between the beacons and the buoys and just, said his speech and thank yous and get out of there, because it's the first time he's really won an Oscar. But instead he had to make a jab at Trump. And so that's why I say, for you in the situation you're in, people dehumanize you because you think differently. I'm dehumanized because of my outspoken conservative beliefs. Now, I say that I don't want to overblow that term dehumanize. What I am saying is I don't have the privilege people think that I do. If I did, I would be Tom freaking Cruise and I would have his bank account, and I don't. So I'd like to point out where people feel I've been privileged. I don't break the law, at least most I can tell that I don't. So does that mean I'm privileged from police brutality? I guess not if I don't break the law. You know what I mean? If I don't put myself in that situation. But I'd like to know where the privilege exists, because I've had to fight and claw for everything in my life and never had anything handed to me.
Yeah, and they'll say stuff like that's not what they mean when they're referring to white privilege. They think, like, I saw someone bring up the fact that if I go to a store and there's makeup for my skin tone, but not for, or for your skin tone, but not for my skin tone,
Yeah.
that's white privilege.
Okay.
If I can drive in a fancy car without being pulled over, that's white privilege.
Okay.
I said this to them. Look, man, I've lived in America. If someone pulls me over, we don't know why they pulled us over. It may be because there's a lot of high crime with people that look like me. A lot of times it's other people like me that's causing trouble for us. It's like, look, guys, we commit like 52% of violent crime. We need to stop. Like we're only like 7% of the population because it's mostly men, right? So like 6-7% commit 52% of the violent crime. That's an issue. And we need to quit that because that paints us in a bad picture. I want to be able to wear a hoodie and a beanie and not be looked at. This is what I'm wearing. I'm trying to dispel that narrative too. It's like, dude, you can wear a hoodie and a beanie and be cool and just and chillax, man. You don't have to be a thug. You don't have to be doing nothing criminal or anything like that.
So
I will appreciate it.
Where is the education and the learning that comes from the community? Because you have pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You've come from a difficult situation, as you mentioned, which I had no idea about. You've made something of yourself in spite of tough circumstances. Where is that message, and why is that message not getting out to more people? And I say that including all races, but specifically my African Americans, and this notion, if you can help me walk through it, of a natural resistance towards police.
So I think the natural resistance just comes from the fact that the KKK used the police force as a strong arm to enforce, black codes and Jim Crow laws, and that specifically in the South. I can at least point to that and be like, okay, that stigma carries on a little bit more. But I doubt it's anywhere near that, but I completely agree that it's nowhere near the same as it was back, when my mom and them were children. But as far as education, we got to think about it. It's a liberal, and they only teach when it comes to laws and history, they only teach certain segments. They don't really teach. I didn't know, for the most part, that when it came to the civil rights movement, that the Republicans were actually voting all the bills in. It was
Yeah.
actually Democrats that were
Yeah.
opposing the bills. And these are the type of things you don't learn until you actually get out into the real world and do some searching for yourselves. So I think especially with the Brexit movement, you know, one of our goals is to educate on that history, on what we have historically fought for. We have been fooled to think that, you know, our ancestors wanted what we have right now from the Democrats, which is false. Even from day one, Frederick Douglass, one of the most, you know, staunch conservative Republicans you can think of, in, you know, in Black history. But he was all about government stay out. You know, he was the
Yeah.
biggest proponent of limited government because he said, man, given the fact what you guys did with chattel slavery, I don't trust you guys at all. And I don't want you involved in anything we're doing. He said, hey, if the Black man survives on his own, he survives on his own. But if he fails on his own, so be it. Just to leave us alone. But we took that and look at us today, and we're so dependent, not just as a race, but as Americans. We have become so dependent on the government to tell us what to do and how we should do things. And because we want to create protective classes and stuff like that, and we have gotten away from the very thought and reason behind the Constitution. And so that's my thing too, is to get us back to that, to the very fabric of the Constitution. And I feel like with that and educate people in those areas, we can see the commonality amongst each other, which is going to dispel a lot of stuff. Because for some reason, we're still being taught the Constitution wasn't written for us. To be frank, it wasn't. But
Right.
then it changed, right? They expect a lot of things to change, but they didn't expect the Constitution to change. I'm like, dude, we got so many amendments that changed it over time. And the whole process of the Congress is to, if we want to add another amendment, we can add another amendment if it needs to be changed again. So yes, it may have not been created for us, but it's definitely for us today. But we
Right.
got to recognize that. So
It's adapted and changed. Do you
yeah.
think though that do you think there are more people out there like myself and yourself who are willing to do the brunt of the research and educate ourselves? Because my concern is that most people are just too lazy to do the information, get the information for themselves. They'd rather be spoon-fed something, whether it's by the Democratic Party, who has exploited, race wars for years, and there's a very ugly history, as you and I both know, about the Democratic Party. But isn't it easier to live in oblivion? Oblivion is bliss. To be lazy and not do your research and not know what our history is, where we've come, and that you can think for yourself. Do you worry that most people will just be spoon-fed and not do the research on their own?
I do. I love my followers on TikTok. I absolutely love them to death. Actually, because of them, I'm talking to you now, Bo.
That's great.
But I do encourage my audience as always to trust but verify. So even if I'm saying something, please go check me. And a lot of people have come back and said, like, the reason I follow you is because I do check you and I find out what you're saying is actually true. So I applaud you for that. So no matter who's saying something, you should always go back and verify, corroborate the evidence. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't take, like you said, it's hard work sometimes. And I know I could spend an hour and get into a rabbit hole without me even knowing. It's, oh my God, you know, just boom, and the whole
Yeah.
day gone. It's like, whoa, what just happened? So I understand that. And even now, with me working a full-time job and still trying to keep it up with the volume of content and what's going on, it's getting pretty difficult because
Yeah.
so many things are happening and occurring. So
It's
I
overwhelming.
get that. And it can be overwhelming, but I do encourage anybody to have some knowledge, and like just maybe read a headline and just find 1 or 2 articles per day, you know, just kind of read. If you want to talk about police brutality today, if you want to read up what the immigration laws are doing, or if you want to read up the next day, what about a Planned Parenthood or the government shutdown, like just read something, 1 or 2 articles daily so you can be up to date about something.
I think the Planned Parenthood situation that you bring out, it's just not sexy enough for the media to cover. And because of that, they're not going to cover it. So you bring up an excellent point, but it's not convenient enough. And that's why it's easier to go loot a Target or to burn down a building, which may make you feel better at the moment, but isn't changing anything other than creating violence and also destroying local business owners who are coming out of an economic recession because of the pandemic. And now you're going to pile that on top of them after they're trying to get started and get back to business, just the times when some of these restrictions are being lifted and you're punishing local business owners. Now, Target's a big company, but you can't tell me there aren't a lot of people that work at Target that aren't going to be affected by that and don't have a job to go to tomorrow. You know,
Facts.
so that's my concern, is that people would be more, they feel more served by letting the emotional rage take over their logic.
Yeah. And speaking of that, man, one of the most disheartening things I saw specifically with the Minneapolis riots is the fact that the black business owner of the bar, the way he just broke down on
Yeah.
camera because of, it's like, dude, you're rioting for people that are like me, that look like me, but you're in here destroying things that I built from the ground up. And like you mentioned, like corporations have that stuff covered, but for the most part, local businesses don't have that same reassurance. So you just destroyed a lifelong work that he's been working hard on, and they don't care. That's my problem. And I will say this, like multiple riots previously, people are being bussed in. A lot of people arrested are not even from the city.
Right.
And these are people that's coming in as opportunists and exploiting the death and rage and fear and this disturbance to go make quick profit and do all those type of things. And that's one thing I hate about it is, and this is why I feel like I'm actually about to go to in Petal, Mississippi, we're about to have a protest because the mayor agreed or said something. Of course, you know, he shouldn't have said it, but once you say something, you give that ability to be taken out of context.
Yep.
I gotta go back and see what he said. But apparently he stated that he agreed with what the officer did in George Floyd's situation.
I heard about this.
So we're gonna be going out there protesting, and I heard about it. So I'm gonna go out there because what I want to do as a conservative, and I feel like, is be the leader, is show them guys like we can separate ourselves from Antifa and all the other thugs that's out there destroying things by, cooperating with the police. Say, hey, we're gonna protest from this time to this time. We're gonna be doing this. We're gonna be in this area. This is us, and we're gonna leave because we want to be able to leave and separate ourselves from anybody else. I would tell them, hey, after 4 o'clock. That ain't us. Feel free to check them, address them, but do not associate us with them.
So you are taking action, then. You're going to protest something that a mayor in Mississippi said that you find offensive and incorrect. It sounds like it is. Where do you draw that line, then? It sounds like you have between protest and violence. And what would someone like MLK say about that? Because we don't have that type of transformational leader who's helping us parse those out. So you feel incumbent upon you to go protest something you think is absolutely wrong. And probably, I'd bet 99.9% of people agree with you, if not more, including myself. But where do you draw that line, and how do you educate people that this is the way to go, not the violent looting route?
I always tell people, hindsight is 20/20, right? We can look at Detroit. We can look at places where they had the rise and burned down hundreds of blocks of infrastructure, and what happens? Nothing's left. Businesses leave. And that's one thing people gotta realize: like, businesses do not have to be there. They can just pick up and choose to leave. They don't have to deal with you destroying, looting, or whatever. They don't. But where I draw the line is, I feel like people have been bringing up the quote from MLK a lot is, a riot is the voice of the unheard, right? But they don't take everything else he said into context. Pretty much what I think is, it's not that their voices are being unheard, it's just that they're not speaking the right language. By that I mean is they're not taking control of all the rights they didn't have back during the civil rights time that we have today, and doing our due diligence and going out and creating that change. And this is why I like Killer Mike, just to bring him back up, man, because he was talking about Atlanta. He was talking about the things they implemented as far as policies, like, they decriminalize marijuana, which we can do locally. If we just go vote for the people that's going to push those policies. They took away cash funds, which disproportionately affect people that are living in poverty. So we can take away all these things that are hurting us, and we can start changing and implementing policies. If you don't, and once again, I don't know who's listening, but anybody can write a policy and introduce it to a congressman or a senator. You don't have to wait for them to write something. You can write it yourself. Submit it to them, but it has to be submitted to one of those people to be put it on the docket to be reviewed. So if you got an issue, write it and exercise your rights. This is what we need to do. And this is why I hate to point to it, but think about what happened with Virginia and the protests up there. Nothing went down. Nobody was arrested. Nothing was broken into, but their voices were heard. And you know what I'm saying? I feel like people think their voices not gonna be heard. Their voices were heard because they went to the source. The police, if the police is the issue, it's not the police officers, it's the government body. So you need to go to the governing body, which is literally the capital or, anybody in that facility, the mayors.
Right.
Those are the people you need to be going, talking to and like blowing their phones up and saying, hey, we need this policy change and we need to change now. If you don't change the policy, all of these thousands of followers, we're going to vote you out next term. We're going to vote you out next election. And this is the power, I feel like, and this is the language we need to speak. It's such a forgotten language because media has made us to focus on federal elections only. Like we've forgotten about the local elections and policies and stuff like that. And I'm one of those people that, look, I know who controls us the most. You can be mad at Trump all you want, but Trump ain't gonna, when your cousin gets locked up next week for 20 years for having an ounce of weed on him, that has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with the DA that you have voted for in your district. So
people don't see that, they forget that. And I think you've made an absolutely compelling point about speaking the right language, that they identify with protests of the past, but don't realize the tools that we have now and the language that we can speak and the change that we can actually create with the right mentality. But people, as you said, rioting being the voice of the unheard, they feel unheard. And so it's easier to conflate, hear me, with violence because they think the violence will create the listening. But it creates a disparate situation where no one's going to want to come to the table if you burn the whole damn city down. That doesn't do anything. Like you said, business leaders are going to pull out. People are going to think there's going to be an inordinate amount of crime there. Why would they want to set up a business there? All your local business owners, what are they going to have to do? What level of extra protection are they going to have to take upon their own resources because of what just happened with looting and with fires? So you make an excellent point about that in terms of what people can actually do right now at this moment.
Yeah. So that's why I encourage people to do, especially in Minneapolis or any, you got the rise in LA, all over the United States at this moment. Guys, stop exploiting this man's death. You didn't know him from, I guess, a door on a knob. I mean, a knob on a door, but you didn't know him. And so let's not pretend we were so emotionally invested into this guy. Let's understand that this is a incident and it's not get carried away and get away from the message that we're trying to send. I encourage and I want people to protest because it's one of our fundamental rights.
Yep.
And I love it. But when it's done right, when it's done in a respectable way, everybody can come together and get behind you. But when you make it dangerous by rioting and looting, that just means that now that's when, as they say, that's when the shooting starts. Not because of your color, but because you're out here vandalizing. When you do that, people feel unsafe to protest then, and then you don't get as much help. I'm telling you right now, I don't want to be shot with a rubber bullet because you over there throwing turkeys through a patrol cruiser because you're upset,
Topher, at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, we always end it with liberty and justice for all. What do you think justice would be in this George Floyd case? And second part to that, what's the best way to remember him? I mean, what's the best way to collectively to honor his life? So what's justice and what's the best way to remember his life and honor it?
Justice to me, man, is just what you would charge a regular individual needs to be charged to these people and convicted. Not just charged and dismissed, but they need to be convicted and serve their time. That's justice. We can't bring back the dead. I don't think they should get the death penalty, but I do think they should be treated as a regular citizen. To me, that's justice. Now, as far as his legacy, one of the last videos he's left, I think it was the night before he met his end. George made a video talking about, because he was really involved in the community, and he left a video talking about how he finds it disturbing and sad the state our community is in, as far as like the gang activity, the kids are just ignoring and just have no respect. And he was saying he knows it's bad because he had people his age bragging about, kids out there toting guns and doing different things. So he was very outspoken about those things. So my thing is, if we're going to do with justice or at least carry on his legacy, this would be a cry or a rally call to Black Lives Matter movement or anybody in the Black community to continue to, uplift our community and change culture. My culture needs changing. And a lot of people's like, well, we celebrate Martin Luther King, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, we celebrate their achievements. We don't celebrate the things they did to get those achievements. And that's the issue. So Martin Luther King, what was his values? You know, he two-parent households, you know, marriage, all those type of things that we don't celebrate today. We celebrate being single. We celebrate, you know, doing all kind of other things that necessarily don't lead to what we celebrate about Martin Luther King and our civil rights leaders. So that's why I say we need to change that culture so we don't have a situation like this. And unfortunately, death is something we can't prevent. It is what it is. But one thing I think we do have the control over is our vote and who we're going to support. And if someone's not supporting us, we should absolutely revoke all support for them.
Well stated. That's well said. Well, thanks so much for this conversation. You know, I think there should be more dialogue like this, you know, and I know that you stand as kind of with a lot of odds against you based on your beliefs, but they're your beliefs. And it's like, you know, saying, well, I'm going to tell you your favorite color is red, but it's purple. No, it's not. If it's purple, it's purple. You know, you can't, it's trying to talk someone out of something that's part of their fundamental fabric. So I appreciate the fact that you've been able to share what's on your heart and your perspective after a lot of research and a lot of reading, because it is overwhelming, the amount of stuff that we have to do to dig through and find out what's truly accurate. So I just appreciate everything you've said, and I'm hoping that our dialogue and others will elevate the conversation and reduce the violence, but actually create accountability for everyone that's involved, because people need to understand what is within their actual power to do rather than feeling helpless and voiceless.
Yes, absolutely. Beautifully put, my friend.
Well, thanks so much, Topher. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.